Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it.
Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable brought to you by First Star Therapy. I'm your host, James Gardner, and this is a platform for the pros, by the pros. Passionate pros, organic dialogue. Let's chat. Thanks for listening. Let's roll.
Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable. This is session 16. Our guest tonight is Aggabao. I'll get into his bio in a second. But again, thank everybody for being here this evening. Let's Chat, session 16. We've already had 15 of these. I don't know where the time's gone, but a lot of good feedback from everybody and a lot of good feedback in terms of you being on this evening. Jay, everybody's really looking forward to this. It's a little bit of a change of pace for us. You're the first strength and conditioning specialist for sure from the football side of things, and really looking forward to getting into it. So I'll start with your formal bio and then just a quick story on how you and I know each other, and then we'll jump right in. Jay Aggabao.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jay is currently a member of the team at Sports Academy, located in Thousand Oaks, California. He oversees special projects at Sports Academy, which includes the NFL Combine Program, NFL Offseason Program, and Bishop Alemany High School Football Sports Performance. Prior to starting his role at Sports Academy, Jay completed his second season as the head strength and conditioning coach for the Toronto Argonauts. Aggabao returned to Toronto after helping the Argos win the 105th Grey Cup during the 2017 CFL season. Prior to joining the Argonauts, he served as the assistant strength and conditioning coach for the Los Angeles Rams, following the organization's move from St. Louis. He served as a seasonal intern strength and conditioning coach with the St. Louis Rams in 2013 before joining the staff full-time. Prior to his arrival in St. Louis, Jay served as a strength and conditioning graduate assistant coach at Illinois State University from 2011 to 2013. He arrived in Bloomington, Illinois after serving as an intern strength and conditioning coach at Washington State University in 2010-2011. He also worked as a student assistant strength and conditioning coach while completing his undergraduate degree at WSU. A native of Talifofo, Guam, Aggabao holds a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, majoring in movement studies from Washington State University. In 2013, he earned a Master's of Science in Exercise Physiology from Illinois State University. He is a U.S. Navy veteran who served from 2002 to 2007. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the National Strength and Conditioning Association and a USA weightlifting certified sports performance coach. Jay, welcome to Let's Chat. We really appreciate your time and for giving up, I know it's the afternoon over there, so giving up the middle of your day for us and being here. If you just want to say hello, and then and maybe we'll jump in and I'll just give a brief rundown on how we know each other.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate you having me on here. I know we've been trying to work on this for a couple of weeks, and timing just didn't work out, but glad we're finally able to do this, and hopefully somebody can get something from this as we go through and chat this evening.
Yeah, I think we already did just from reading your bio. We can kind of follow all the places that you've been, all the internships you've done, obviously hard work, dedication, stick-to-itiveness, and characteristics that jump out about you just from your bio. So Jay and I actually met sort of at random when I was working at York University. He's got the York Strength shirt on tonight just for good measure.
There you go.
I don't know if you yeah, he's got it working. But Jay and I ran into each other in the High Performance Center at York University while the Argos were using York's campus for training camp. We had a couple really good conversations when I was down there rehabbing a couple York athletes. He was training some of the Argos, and there was a little bit of overlap time. And Jay and I really hit it off on a philosophical level, but just a really good guy, open, willing to discuss some random things. We discussed some shoulder stuff, I think, the first time we talked, and then just kind of went from there. And obviously you had a lot of discussions with the strength and conditioning and performance team at York. But yeah, again, another really good human being and easily accessible, really loves the craft and is an artist in terms of what he does in his application. So Jay, yeah, first question that everybody wants to know is if you're watching Tiger King or not, and then we can get into like the rest of the stuff. Doesn't really matter after that.
No, I am not. I actually haven't really had a whole time to indulge during this what you could call like stay at home or COVID time. I've been
Yeah, so Jay was having a bit of he's been having a bit of spotty internet over the last couple of days. He was saying just before he got on. So hopefully we can get him back. There you go. You're back again.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm sorry. The internet's been going crazy around here. My wife was just reminding me that it's been spotty for the past couple of days. But to answer the Tiger King question, no. I'm familiar with all the memes and kind of the discussion that's going around regarding that, but I've actually been quite busy during this stay-at-home period, so I haven't really had a chance to indulge in Tiger King and the cultural phenomenon that it is.
We have the running tally going, so that takes it back to a 2-point lead, I guess, for the no's. It was a hard lead for the yeses for a little bit, so I'm glad we're coming back around to normalcy. But yeah, man, your bio is crazy, and you sent me a story last night, and I read through it from heavy.com, and I think maybe I'll start with that just for sharing purposes and to get this conversation started. You worked with an NFL team, a CFL team, and you're currently training athletes on all kinds of levels in terms of football specific.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just going to share this so that everybody can see it. I'm terrible with the screen still, so let me just do this real quick. This is a direct quote from an article that I took from reading it last night after I was speaking with Jay briefly, and just some quotes directly out of it. You can maybe walk us through your story a little bit, but obviously you spent some time in the military. You made some decisions at a young age. You had a lot of, some troublesome years and really found yourself through the military. And at some point, the parts that I highlighted in blue really jumped out at me is that, being disciplined and being locked in and paying attention to detail brought you success, both in the military, and then you've translated that outward to your professional career. And then down at the bottom, like this is it right here. You just want to be able to inspire somebody. This is an article that was written about working with Todd Gurley, who's a good friend of yours. You got to know him over some years, right?
Yeah. So little background on the article. A couple months ago, I guess Todd had put out a picture of him training with me, and someone reached out on Instagram, and you know how Instagram is these days. Everybody is well connected through that. So she reached out and just wanted to write an article about Todd. And so, obviously checked with him, spoke with him, made sure it was okay, gave up some points for the interview. But as part of her research, she was doing background for the story. She wanted to learn a little bit more about me. So I told her a little bit about my background, my story before I moved to the U.S. And she decided it was worth a story. And so she reached out a couple weeks ago and, just re-interviewed me or kind of touched upon some points and then put it out the other day. I think it was put out on Thursday or Friday before I shared it with you. So kind of perfect timing for this. But the basic gist of it is that I was a high school dropout. I ended up going to 4 high schools in 4 years, in under 4 years. My first high school, I was expelled from halfway through my freshman year. Ended up at a public school after that. Left that of my own choice and went to do my sophomore year at a Catholic school. Lasted through a couple suspensions there until I was finally expelled my junior year, the first month or so of the junior year. And then immigrated and moved to the U.S. So I was already at 3 high schools, went to a school in Loveland, Colorado called Campion Academy. And within 2 or 3 months, got arrested, suspended, just basically a lot of self-inflicted bad choices and damage into my life, and was able to get back into school for the rest of the year. I think they let me back the second semester, and then the following fall eventually expelled me for good. So at that point, I realized it wasn't exactly worth it. My parents agreed that it wasn't worth it for me to go back to school and try to, go to another 5th high school in 4 years. Pretty much a waste of time of everybody's efforts and energy. And so after a couple of months of just kind of sitting around trying to figure things out, when I got my GED, was able to get accepted the same, not really, parents want to get into the medical field to that effect. So I started doing that down that road and was barely able to maintain my grades to stay in school. And, September 11th happened. And so after 9/11, I think that kind of woke me up a little bit, got me thinking about, what I wanted to do with my life. So in December, I signed up for the U.S. Navy on a delayed entry program. And so that gave me a little bit of time to kind of back out on my decision. But in June of the following year, so June of 2002, I joined the Navy and went to boot camp. So went to boot camp, didn't know what to expect, but quickly saw that, like I said in that article, just being disciplined and aware and having some work ethic would get me somewhere. So I ended up getting the privilege of being ranked the number 1 recruit in my graduating class, which is like 700, almost 800 recruits in the class. So I automatically got going from an E1, bumped up to E3, and got to choose where I would go to school. Because initially when I signed up, I was just a deck seaman. So that's basically, I would have been scrubbing the sides of the ships and doing all the dirty work, but I chose to become a military policeman of all things, and ended up being able to go to Sasebo, Japan as my first duty station. Ended up doing that, advanced fairly quickly, and a couple years later, at the end of my term, decided that I'd had enough and got out. So, part of that story too, is I ended up getting out sometime in May or April, something like that. Met my wife on a blind date at a Starbucks, and 21 days later got married. So this weekend, actually tomorrow, will be our 13th wedding anniversary. So that's a crazy story for all you lovebirds out there, or those of you that don't believe in love, but whatever, it works either way, right? But yeah, we got married and then decided to go back to school. So obviously didn't have the greatest previous grades before. So ideally I would have gone to the University of Washington because that was an hour away from where I lived, but I ended up having to move to Pullman, Washington, where I got accepted at Washington State University. Initially wanted to go and be a sports agent. I had some mutual acquaintances over the years who were in that field. And after a semester, realized that sport management and wearing a suit and tie just weren't my thing. So moved into kinesiology. Initially started as an athletic trainer, and during one of those courses had a weightlifting class, and was part of that was volunteering in the weight room at WSU under David Lang, who's now deceased and one of my first mentors. And that kind of got me thinking about what I really wanted to do with my career, what I was more passionate about. When I was in the Navy, I'd joined the Navy weighing dripping wet, maybe 122 pounds. And when I got out, was weighing 185 over the course of 5 years, just training and, getting after it when there's nothing better to do. So I decided that was kind of a better fit for me, personality wise, and what I wanted to do. And realistically, I think that the whole love for the military kind of drove me towards football, just because at the end of the day, football still is the closest thing, in my opinion, you can get to the military, with people of so many different backgrounds, walks of life, from all over the country, and now all over the world, playing the sport and going after the same goal. And in a fairly large number, in any organization, depending, CFL, obviously smaller numbers, but anywhere from 60 to 100 players. And then you also throw in all the support staff in there. So for me, it's just a lot of fun to work with so many different people with the same goal in mind. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the article background. And then, yeah.
What an amazing journey. And I think I don't know where to start with picking that thing apart or diving in, but Starbucks, man, that's where it happened, huh? Line days, mocha, frappa. What'd you have? How much sugar was in that drink?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember, but it's no Tim Hortons, but actually, what? I will say that I will say this. This is the espresso at Tim Hortons is my favorite. The ones you just get through on the drive-through.
Okay.
That's my favorite. I mean, other than the stuff you do at home and you get to pick your own beans and stuff, but definitely from any, I guess, any business, I'll go with, you. That's my.
Yeah, your internet is struggling a little bit, but I'm hearing rumors that Tim Hortons is now doing drive-thrus, and they've manufactured they're working with Bauer, and they have hockey sticks with this card swipers on the end, and they're holding them out the windows for swiping purposes for drive-thrus at Tim Hortons. So I don't know, looking forward to that one if and when that happens.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah.
We're starting to do drive-thrus here. We're actually doing mobile orders and mobile pickups now. We just went and got some coffee this morning, and you can order mobile, or you could just walk up and order, but you can't go in the store. Obviously, you have to maintain social distancing and wear the mask and all that, the whole nine.
Yeah. Bizarre times for sure, which we could probably spend 4 hours discussing and dissecting. But let's jump in with you a little bit further on this. Listen, your story is amazing. Probably at times not so amazing while you were in it, but following instincts and following passion, sometimes the best things we can do, right? And we've had a couple guests on here, and we're just talking about the practice of sports performance in general, and where mistakes actually lead us to the greatest answers. If we did everything right, the reward typically isn't quite as it's not quite as rewarding if we do everything right along the way. We think we know everything along the way, and a story of sort of self-reflection and following what you were passionate about and acknowledging what you really cared about and what made you tick. So a lot of good life lessons in there as well. You said you're still training, right? Like you're training some athletes out there currently through these times. You found a space where you can do that, and you guys can execute what you need to do.
I'm able to still train during this time, as we mentioned before we got on this call. So I'm still training Todd Gurley, YG, and a couple NFL players. There is a guy that lives about 10 minutes away from me, that next exit down, who is a financial advisor for a lot of athletes, actors, actresses, you name it, that realm. He decided to, a couple of years ago, build a weight room in his backyard, separate from the house, has a sauna, basketball court, 2 racks, dumbbells, force plate, Kaiser, you name it. He has it all. And so we're able to go there and train. We pull up to the house, get in the neighborhood, and don't interact with him at all. I mean, other than text or just saying hi from across the courtyard. But and then he brings somebody in professionally to clean up after us. So there's somebody in that comes in to clean up after us, spray everything down, and we obviously rearrange and put all the equipment away. But as far as disinfecting everything, he takes it a step further from us actually doing stuff. We still do, wipe down everything when we're done with it, but he brings someone in after our session and gets it cleaned up. So we've actually been able to have a really good time with it. We ended up having one guy got diagnosed with COVID-19. He was he had traveled, and so he feeling under the weather. Obviously, it takes 10 to 14 days for the symptoms to show, but felt under the weather. So self-quarantined, and no one else, in that time period. That was about 6 weeks ago. So we haven't had any issues since. We've just had one guy out of the however many sessions we've had. So we feel like we're practicing, still social distance and everything like that, even in the weight room, being able to maintain things. Obviously, that kind of changes how we do some of the workloads because spotting's not involved. So it's made it an interesting challenge, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun. And, the guys are grateful for the opportunity, as am I, to continue living somewhat of a normal life during these trying times.
Yeah. Well, and the creative aspect of it, and sort of like turning it into an opportunity to make it work as well. What a cool way to go. You have some really good relationships, obviously, with the athletes that you work with, and personnel along the way. What would you say some of the really strong characteristics of people you've worked with in the performance field? People you look up to, people you feel like, you mentioned your mentor at Washington State. What are some of the characteristics that make up strong professionals in the field in your eyes?
Yeah, I think, there's always the typical stuff about, being disciplined and caring about the athletes, your work, and all those things. But I think the one thing that's really stood out to me and what I try to implement with my athletes is true, genuine relationships. A lot of times, it's interesting. There's
We're struggling.
And obviously there's a financial. All right. Am I back yet? I see you again.
Yeah, we just asked you on that last little bit. If you want to repeat it, maybe, or parts of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely. So I was just talking about like actual genuine caring. And I think I mentioned that I was trying to mention that there was a tweet, I might've been yesterday or something. I saw somebody say about, for a lot of these strength coaches to stop pretending that they have all these great relationships. I'm able to get them to do a certain amount of work, whether or not they're feeling it, simply because they know that I truly care about their best interests. For example, the other day, we've been talking about the current theme of like typical discussion right now is one of the guys got engaged. Leading up to that engagement, he's living with his now fiance. He didn't have a chance to sneak conversation with his family, his friends or anything like that. They're living together and he can't drive around to see his friends. So in the weight room, we're literally sitting there going through his plan, giving him feedback, thoughts about what we think will happen, how she's going to respond, and all these little things as a group. And now we give another guy a hard time. Fiance talk about being a cultural phenomenon and those things. But I think for me, and I think the reason the guys enjoy training is, it's training, but it's the other stuff that comes with it. And it's the true, genuine relationships where I'm checking on their kids. They're checking on me and my family. My anniversary's this weekend. The guys are hitting me up, telling me to make sure I'm taking care of my wife, helping me out with stuff, whatever it is, helping me make sure, I get the flowers and all that other stuff. So I think, I'm kind of rambling, and I do like to ramble, sorry about that. But the thing I've seen from all my mentors is that they genuinely care about the athletes. And after that playing career is done, they are still genuinely invested in well-being and in their growth and maturity.
Yeah, you're breaking up. I'm hoping to resolve a little bit, but but you bring up genuine relationships and you bring up those things that not a lot of people see outside the sports world either. You know, when it comes to the therapy staff, when it comes to coaches as well. I can't really speak so much to coaches, but performance staff, strength and conditioning coaches, therapists, athletic trainers, who spend so much time together that the only real way to survive is building those bonds, right? Like you spend so much time together, and they're certainly going to butt heads on occasion, but being able to clear the air, come back around and say, we're spending more time together than we do with the people that we live with, for the most part during a season and things like that. So coming back around to that athlete-centric or that patient-centric model is huge to hear that's sort of, that's the backbone of what we do. How much of that did you feel like you gained through your internships? Did you really pick up on that during your internships? Was there something that you really picked up on as you've grown as a professional and your skill set and developed over time?
I think it started during my internships. I think, at Washington State University, I was a student intern there. And Dave Lang, Corey Metzger-Deacon, Darren Lavatt, and Marco Candido were some of the first strength and conditioning coaches I worked with. And you could, if you're willing to open your eyes, you could really see, and I was able to see that they just genuinely cared about the athletes. I mean, I think, I may be mistaken about the first true relationship I saw, but I vaguely remember a female volleyball player, if I'm not mistaken, come into the weight room one day, just crying, before a workout. I think somebody ended up taking the rest of the team through a workout or something, and there was just a one-on-one conversation. And I don't remember the details of what that was or whatever, but I've had that similar situation happen to myself, where I had an athlete show up late for a session at Illinois State University, and he was late. And Coach Lathrop sent me over to find out what was going on, and we ended up not even stressing about the guy because he had other issues that were bigger than football. And so what if he was late? Yeah, of course we want guys to be punctual and be on time and everything like that, but you got to understand at some point that there is a human side to everything, and if you show you really care and understand about the situation, I think they'll give you even more effort in the long run. And then likewise, the rest of the team does too, because they realize that you're not going to just sit there and yell at the kid or mother F them all over the place for being late, because they're eventually going to hear what the real story is. And if you end up doing that right off the bat, you're going to lose a lot of the other team as well, because they'll realize that no matter how good the excuse is, you're not going to pay attention against to prove themselves.
It's always interesting when we look at athletics, even in university, amateur sport doesn't tend to have the support staff in place like university level sport and pro sport, but always those things that tend to surface in the training or in the weight room. You get to really know those athletes. You get to know them a little bit better than what they bench or what they can squat. And that makes a huge difference in terms of outcomes as well, right? Like if someone's going to train their butt off, or they're going to work harder in the rehab. If every 6 sessions or something, you just check in and say hey, how's life? Instead of let's see how much we can put up on the rack, or let's see how much range of motion we can get today, and those kinds of things. So that's huge advice for everybody listening, and it's humbling to hear in such a high level performing job and role as you have to always come back around to the person and what a difference that makes. I'm sure those guys really appreciate having you around, man. I know when you were there with the Argos, we had a couple students and therapists that work with the team, and just the respect level back and forth in the gym and in the training room as well was massive, and that made things go a long way with that team, and I'm sure it contributed well. It's a little bit of the softer stuff that can't be equated linearly to wins and losses, but when you can create a culture like that of caring, it certainly boosts morale, and that has a soft skill that elevates everybody. So really good stuff, man. How about in terms of your training? You're working with a lot of combine athletes, so some college athletes. For those of you that aren't familiar, people trying to get drafted, guys trying to get drafted in the NFL go through a combine on an annual basis. Walk us through what the combine is, or how you prepare your athletes for the combine, and if you can, maybe just disseminate what is a football training program, not your typical actual but high school to college, college to the NFL, how do they vary or how do they differ?
Yeah, that's a great question. So starting with the combine stuff, the combine is typically an 8-week program. That's how we run it. But that leads up from January through the combine, which is the end of February. However, everybody shows up at different times depending on their football season. So if you're on a very successful team, have bowl season, your bowl may be sometime in early December, or in the case 2 years ago, 2 combine classes ago, we had a guy playing in the national championship. So he showed up late. A couple guys played in the Rose Bowl, so they took a couple days and they all showed up late. Really, the combine program is a basic 8-week program to help guys get ready to perform a bunch of different tests, right? So it's not necessarily about playing football, but it's about being able to perform these tests at the NFL combine, very similar to the CFL combine. The biggest thing for us is when guys show up, they've been playing an entire football season. And then if you backdate that even further, they had training camp, they had an entire college off season. And so you're talking about they've been training hard since the previous January. So it's about a year of full training, and that's just the cycle they go through. So a lot of injuries. First thing they come in is go through full medical exam, and we just have to figure out where they're at. The lifting and the sports performance, the training stuff is really very basic and rudimentary. First week, 2 weeks, do a little work capacity, hypertrophy, accumulation period. You can't break it down like you typically would when you have several months. You have 8 weeks. So first week, week and a half is really condensed. And then we have to get into getting their strength back, their explosiveness and everything leading up to this. In turn, we coordinate that with their speed training and agility training. So linear, very big at the combine, 40 yards, running that, being able to do that, locking in their technique. So we have an 8-week progression with a little deload right before the end there. And then same thing with all their linear movements, the L cone, 5-10-5, et cetera, et cetera. So everything's very structured, but at the same time, we have to make adjustments. These guys are the best as far as athletics are concerned. So we even had a guy 2 classes ago come in, and I think he ran three or four full speed days out of the 8 weeks. And so obviously that doesn't exactly speak for running very well on testing day. Sure. You there?
We're waiting for you to come back.
I lose you there again? Sorry.
Lost it a little bit. Listen, as good as the virtual world is, this is just the reality of it. Hey, sometimes it sucks, and there's just no reason about it. It just sucks, and we're going to stick with it.
Where'd you lose me at? And I'll just try to catch up right there.
Somebody come in and they're doing 3 days, three full speed days, I think you said, or 3 weeks of speed.
Yeah, so he ran, so out of the 8 weeks, I think he ran 3 or 4 full speed days. Other than that, it was technique, just get off, working on technique. He ended up running a 4.83 at the combine in the 40. And while that doesn't sound fast, it actually is extremely fast for a 300-plus pound D lineman, a D tackle. Yeah. And then we also had another guy that trained a little bit more than that, and ran a 4.38, 4.37. So we had a really good speed team that put everything together. But it's really, it doesn't come down to just one part. Really, it starts with the medical, then this, in this particular case for running linear, the speed team, and then the performance team, making sure everything is coordinated so that the workloads are balanced evenly across the board. Going back to your question about high schoolers, with my guys right now, I'm keeping things very simple. Come in, use 2 basic strength movements, train them 3 days a week. So I have a lower, an upper. I start with a lower on Monday, upper Wednesday, and a total body on Friday. Keep it very simple. Come in, simple lifts, progressions, keeping it very basic and simple as we move through, and then really working on their conditioning. I'm blessed to be with some very talented kids. I have a sophomore that committed to USC.
Oh, wow.
I'm a junior that committed to USC. I have and this is a linebacker, so highly touted recruits. Some old linemen that are, I mean, they're big. I got some 15-year-olds that weigh like 330 and are athletic and can move. Like it's different. So it's great because at the same time I get to bring them in and they interact when they're finishing up. My first group of NFL guys come in, so they get to see what that's like and what they have to work to, and they're able to develop a small bond. You know, they don't talk a whole lot because the groups move pretty quickly in and out, but they're able to just have some quick conversations or ask questions and, you know, exchange Instagram information. And that really is, for these guys, the big key, because now they can stay in touch and ask questions or whatever it is, right? So build relationships with professionals, and they love that.
Yeah, that integrated model where the younger kids can see the pros, even just to have a little bit of physical space where they cross paths and see what's going on, and just to be in the same place, use the same equipment, and it goes a long way. It's sort of it's nicely uniform across all the pro sports now. There's some really integrated models where amateur athletes are working with pro athletes, at least in the same space and the same equipment. Hey, you touched on the 15-year-olds and the younger kids and what they're doing for lifting. And without getting into specifics, we're down here in the Bahamas, and we're working at a school, and there's one swimmer that I spent a lot of time working with, and she's a national record holder here. She's 13. She's now 14. And I would train her based on her capacity as an athlete. So that came down to like a true evaluation of her as an individual, you know, and not necessarily her biological age, but looking at her biological age and then her quote unquote training age or her capacity to train. Is that a fairly standard practice with you, or at 15, do you have some rules that like, okay, nobody's doing this exercise because? How does that work in football for you guys?
It's that's a tough question because I don't have any strict rules with these guys. Yeah, I don't have any strict rules with these guys because the reality is I'm not dealing with your average 15 or 16-year-old.
Right.
I'm dealing with guys that potentially they're in a pipeline and they have the potential of being elite college players. Like most of these guys are receiving, like I had a freshman safety. So what is he, 13, 14? I think he was 14 at the time. He received his first offer to by the third or
We're struggling again.
But the rules.
Yeah. We lost you at the school name of where is. I think you were going to say Baylor as a freshman safety. If you're back, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. So the freshman safety had an offer as an 8th grader to Baylor.
Yeah, wow.
And then 3 games into his freshman year, had an offer to Oregon. The reason I say I throw the rules out the window is because these guys are very talented. I stick to the basics in the sense of I won't let them chase numbers or chase weight, but the exercises I let them do, it's still a pretty simple workout because you got to remember I got 70, 80 guys in 8 racks I got to run through. And so things are very simple, but as far as rules on how I can push them and teach them, I'm having to learn. I'm definitely having to learn, but at the same time, it's a blessing because instead of having to push these guys and push their physical limitations, I'm instead having to hold them back and try to limit them. So that's a different challenge in and of itself. But these guys are very gifted, so I'm able to do some things that you probably wouldn't do with a typical 15-year-old. But that's just the position we're in. I think if I were working with an average high school population, then obviously I would have some rules in place on how we're going to progress things. The only hard rule I have in place is the true freshman versus the rest of the team. But the example I gave you, this young man started on varsity since day one. So he doesn't even train with a freshman group. Since the day he showed up on campus, he was training with the juniors and seniors. So in that case, why would I hold him back and, train him like a freshman when he has to be ready to play varsity football?
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. And you're dealing with, and I think this is a key disseminator for everybody, whether it's in the clinic or in the gym or on the field, is when you're working with the exception, you need to acknowledge that. But when you're working with the norm, you also need to acknowledge that, because there's a lot of athletes, they shouldn't have weight on their back. They shouldn't pick weight up off the ground as 13, 14, 15-year-olds just because they're not movement mature enough. They're not neurologically mature enough. And maybe even just their training age as well. If they've never done it before, there's no sense forcing them to do things that they're not ready for. So working with those exceptions, it sounds like you've got a cohort of athletes that we'll keep our eye out for the next few years, definitely coming out of your space.
Yeah.
You talked about the bowl games and the season, the college season, and obviously you have to periodize or program based on where they're at and where they're trying to get to. They have a bowl game down here in the Bahamas, actually, and I went over to it. It was University of Buffalo and Charlotte. It was the 2020 Bahamas Bowl, and it was everybody came down here to get away from winter, but it was gray and terrible, and I was in shorts because it was, I don't know, it's still the Bahamas, but everybody else was complaining that they came for a vacation in this bowl game. But so they do a little bit of football here, and the stadium was certainly not a sellout, but it was a nice little bowl game. Yeah, it was good. I think two teams that had never been Charlotte's first bowl game, and Buffalo ended up clobbering them, I don't know, 41-9 or something like that. And then just like a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago, it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like a year ago. Coaches versus COVID. The NSCA did that nice online platform, and UBuff's head football guy was doing some really good stuff on agility and change of direction online. And anyway, that's just a ramble. So you talk about rambling and apologize for it. Don't ever apologize for it. That's usually where stories about absolutely nothing come out of, but then they're great stories and nonetheless. So we'll roll with that, man.
Drew's a very good coach that I've been in touch with over the years. So yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah. It's a really nice presentation too. So if anybody's looking for a football contact aside from Jay, who's way out on the West Coast, you can have one on the West Coast, and then you can find him down at University of Buffalo, which isn't too far on the other side of the border for those of you in Ontario out there. Man. So your time with the Argos, you won a Grey Cup. I put that picture up of you in the shorts in the snow, and that was like just making a little funny, but you're the only guy that's in shorts and a t-shirt out there besides the O-line, right? Like, this is the thing. And I don't think that was a statement, you're just, that's you, man. You're strong enough to do it. Hold it up. That was great. How was that? How was the celebration winning the Grey Cup in Canada? I hope we didn't.
Well, going back to the picture, I really wasn't trying to make a statement. It was more of, I'm a superstitious guy. So, hold on a second. All right, we're back. There we go.
Yeah,
a little bit superstitious. So once we knew we made the playoffs, every single playoff game, I would wear the same outfit to go for warmups, regardless of the weather. It's just superstition. Like, you start rolling, you roll. And I think it started with whatever game we played to clinch a playoff berth. Whatever outfit I was wearing pregame, then I knew that was going to be the outfit I'd have to wear for the rest of the time. So I definitely went and bundled up after that, but it was still really cold. Like, it didn't matter. It was cold. Celebration was tremendous. It was great. One of the best experiences I've ever had. Obviously the only championship I've ever won. And so it was a tremendous experience. My friends were at halftime sending me text messages because they were here south of the border watching it, and they called it the most Canadian thing they could ever see because Shania Twain got dragged out on a sleigh by a Canadian Mountie. So they were loving that and texting me about it and everything. She was the halftime show. Obviously, I didn't get to see any of that, but it was definitely one for memory, not just the winning, but the whole snow and how crazy it all was with the weather. So
yeah, what a
pretty cool.
A crazy win, a pretty magical little time in Canada for you too. And they were probably calling and asking, like, can you bring back some of that Tim Hortons espresso that you love so much? Because you can't find that south of the border unless they're in, I don't know, Michigan.
The Canadians actually did. The Canadians actually did say that.
There you go. Yeah, man, your time here was great. Can you talk to us a little bit maybe about your time in pro football? What kind of interactions did you have with the therapy staff? Did you guys have a lot of like running dialogue, daily meetings? How did things go when it came to sort of disseminating strength and where guys were at, or in terms of rehab? Like, you don't have to get into details, obviously, but how were the interactions, and how valuable are those interactions to you as a strength coach when you have access to a medical staff or a therapy staff?
I think they're extremely important. I think one of the first things I learned, Reggie Scott, who is, I don't know what his title is now, but he oversees medical and sports performance for the Rams. He was involved in my interview back in St. Louis. And, from the get-go, always in constant communication with their staff. Even to this day, I still stay in touch with Tyler Williams, who's their sports scientist there with the Rams, and Byron Cunningham, who does a lot of their rehab and return to play protocols. He and I actually worked very closely together when Todd Gurley was a rookie, like trying to help him, make that comeback and whatnot. And I think the biggest thing is you got to have communication. I don't think it needs to be structured in the terms of daily meetings. The reality is people are busy. And I think if you force things in a meeting format, a lot of good information gets lost, because people just want to be succinct and get out of the meetings. But I think if you develop good working relationships with your peers, and then also with the players, they're able to relay information. Like even now with our medical staff, if there's anything that occurs with a player I'm working with, the player can easily relay the information, or the coach will, the ATC, the therapist, the PT, they don't always text me because they know that I don't keep my phone on me when I'm coaching. So they know that the players are going to relay the right information. And I know if a player comes to me and says, hey, so-and-so said this, obviously trust has to be developed there, but you're able to just communicate. And even though that's not direct communication per se, to me, it's still communicating, because they're still relaying a message back and forth from through the athlete, sorry. And the athlete's also involved in that communication, which for me is even better, because now the athlete knows that we're communicating on everything. And so when, let's say, for example, I'll have an athlete come in and tell me, hey, so-and-so told me, the trainer told me that we need to do this today. I was like, all right, I'll take care of it right now, and then I'll follow up afterwards. The athlete then knows that when they go back afterwards, there's going to be a follow-up, and they've seen that, and it's, an established trend. So they know that we're taking care of them. And then at the same time, they can't push anything over on us, because if I do go to follow up and there was something that, wasn't brought forth by the trainer or the therapy staff, the athlete knows elevate the relationship by having regular communication.
Yeah. I think that's huge. You cut out just a smidgen at the end of that, but the majority of that is massive. So having those dialogues, having that relationship, and I really like that point, man, that the unforced communication where, again, coming back around to your earlier point about the athlete-centric approach is, we're here to care about everybody who's on this roster and making this thing tick, is like communicating about what's going on with each athlete as things are happening, and it's sort of live and it's moving as it goes. Definitely leads to some good results in the gym, and everybody communicating on a certain athlete or a certain issue or whatever. So some really good talking points there as well. In terms of the sideline, like during a game, how much work are you doing with athletes during a game in your role or in your past roles?
In my past roles, none. I'll rephrase, rarely. I leave that to the ATCs and the therapy staff. Typically, a strength coach and the strength staff on sideline for football is being the get-back coach. Essentially, I'm responsible for keeping the coaches and their energy and tantrums controlled on the sideline. And, just that's your main focus. But there are times when the ATC staff is busy, or there is a player that prefers something I do, whether it's a stretch or just talking to them. They'll come over and we'll talk them through whatever it is, emotions, stretching them out, tightening up, whatever it is. We'll talk about whether or not I think they really need to go see the trainer. A lot of times it's something they don't need to. They just need to know they don't. Football's, like hockey, very impact oriented sport. So, a guy getting tackled and getting the wind knocked out of him, I'm like, okay, do you really need to go see them right now? Because there are other athletes that may need greater priority. So it's helping the athletic training staff kind of manage that a little bit and encourage guys not to go seek help when it's not really necessary. I mean, could they get some help and be treated? Yes, but you're going to take away maybe from somebody else that has a little bit more of a pressing concern in the moment.
Yeah, very good, very good. Are there a couple of people in the football world that you rely on for pretty reliable information that maybe you follow or like you talk to on a regular basis to keep you on track or on task or up to date? I mean, I know you're edge and you're at the top of the game, but are there other people that you align with in the field? Maybe name drop a little bit. So we have a couple football people on here on the Canadian side.
Yeah, so on the Canadian side, I stayed in touch with Matt Nickel. So he and I grew close during my time up there. And then Chris Boyko over in Vancouver, who's with I believe the BC Lions. There's a couple other people up there as well. Off the top of my head right now, I can't remember. But
but down there too?
Here, so down here, I stay in touch like regularly. A lot of times it's like I stay in touch less about football and the professional side and just more on the friendship side. But Chad Engelhart, who's the head strength and conditioning coach for the Washington Redskins, stay in touch with him on a regular basis. Derek Keys, who's with the Minnesota Vikings as an assistant. I still stay in touch with Rock Gullickson, who's my mentor and now retired in Portland, Oregon. Evan Marcus, who is with the Cleveland Browns, Rusty Witt, who is, I stay in touch with him a little less, but we still share very common connections with Rock because he was under Rock as well back in the day. But Rusty is at University of, Troy University. My apologies. Just lost that name there. And then was just texting over the weekend with Boucher at, I hope I said his name right, at the Citadel. And then, that's just that realm. And then basketball wise, I still get stuff from guys in basketball. So like Ryan Horn, definitely stay in touch with Ryan. And then obviously Corey Schlesinger with the Suns now. And I'm actually good personal, even level personal, which is Monty Williams, who's the head coach for the Phoenix Suns. And then different guys, I mean, I lose track all the time, who for a while in South Carolina.
Yeah, cutting in and out a little bit there, but hopefully everybody got a couple names out of that. And I can get those from Jay afterwards and have them up if there's people that you want to follow, people you want to connect with beyond Jay as well, obviously. A cutting-edge football trainer, strength and conditioning specialist, performance coach, whatever you want to call him, just good guy, football guy and sports guy who can house them all. And you talked about your time when you were 122 in the Navy, I think, your first year in the Navy, 122 pounds. Is that what your right leg is weighing right now or not? You look pretty good over there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sitting at about 210 now. I guess the goal is 215, 220. We'll see how it goes. They just it's a lot of work and it's painful. I'm 40 now, so it's not as fun. The lifting part is fun, but the aches and pains, the reality of getting older. Went on a hike yesterday with my wife. It was about 2 hours and 15 minutes. A lot of uphill. Actually, it was uphill all the way in and then turn around and it's all downhill all the way back. So uphill, obviously, muscularly, I'm struggling a little bit, getting my wind. And then on the way back, just bracing and the knees were achy the rest of the day. So, it's interesting. We'll see. The training, my training and my body weight goes through cycles now. Really, it's focused around the football season. So when fall football starts, I'm still pretty good into the training and I'll maintain body weight for a while. And then as we get closer to October, November, December, body weight drops drastically into the 190s. And then that's usually where it stays during the combine season. Instead of training 4 to 5 days a week, now I'm trying to get 1 to 2 days a week in and, just sneaking in whatever I can based on my schedule. So the combine program itself is essentially a 7-day-a-week program. Time-wise, I just don't have that much time, and so you go from late December to March, or the first week of March, rolling pretty heavy, and so it's just hard to train and everything like that. So then once March rolls around, you slowly start easing back into it, and now we're kind of where I'm happy with my training again.
Yeah. And I think you've touched on a little bit of balance and how you have to sort of schedule around the schedule of the athletes, how you balance your life, how you balance, obviously, training, you live it. So a big part of what you do is living and breathing what you're preaching and teaching on a regular basis too. That certainly is obvious, and that goes a long way. You talked about getting older, but you're not old yet because you said one of those ways was downhill. So it wasn't uphill both ways, which is good. In the snow with no shoes on, and
no.
Yeah, it wasn't quite there. But I'm with you, man. Have you started making noises when you get up off the couch or the chair? Because I'm making all kinds of noises right now, and I'm not comfortable with it. I stand up and it's just like one of those. Ugh. I didn't need to make that noise, but I'm just making it. Have you started that yet, or no?
Yeah, I mean it's been going on for a while. It just depends. It depends on the day, the time. I mean, realistically, how you're feeling now. I wake up, typically when I wake up at 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, it's not too bad. It's more at the end of the day when I've been on my feet, I've been coaching and stuff like that. Then, maybe I come home, sit on the couch for a couple minutes, and it's like you got to get up to do something. And that's when the aches and pains happen. But the early morning wake-ups aren't too bad. Still used to that. The body actually feels way better early in the morning. So typically I get into the training, take my pre-workout at 4:30, and so by 4:15 or 4:45 I like to start hitting the weights, and I'm done with that just in time for the players to start showing up. They'll show up early enough to foam roll and tool around while I'm getting cleaned up and hop in the shower, but sometimes they'll show up earlier just to see me lift or talk about it. That was one of my favorite things when I was coaching in the NFL with Rock, lifting with Rock and Adam back in St. Louis. The guys would come by, and on Deadlift Friday, we would do Deadlift Fridays. They would come by, and depending if it was a heavy day or whatnot, they would ask us about what time we would be hitting like heavy singles or doubles or whatever it was. And they would try to schedule a break with their coach so they could come by and watch the lift and cheer us on. And, obviously see us struggle as well.
Yeah, nice. Little community building, we had, I don't know if you know Steve Lidstone, but he used the term sweat equity, where just you're in the room, everybody's sweating, and it just builds that reciprocal relationship both ways. Yeah. We had, that's amazing. We had, when I was working minor leagues in baseball, I don't know if you know Sal Fasano, but he's as a massive catcher, spent some time with the Blue Jays, Philadelphia and the Yankees in his career, but they called him Beast. And every time he wanted to lift, he'd have to go to the facility early because nobody else would be able to take any weight, because he would just load up the squat bar with all the weight that was in the gym, and you'd hear him from outside the freaking facility because he's just grunting so loud. But it's just amazing. But everybody wanted to get there. But Sal would only squat at he wouldn't tell anybody when he was going, but he'd always go right there, right in that sweet spot, like 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning. He had to get up early to catch him squatting. That's awesome, man. That's a great story. Hey, a couple of questions, or one question just popped in terms of your approach during the season. How do things change for your athletes during the season in terms of lifting?
Yeah, so that's a great question. For me, the one thing I manage is volume. I prioritize intensity. So for my guys, even the high school guys, and when I was coaching with the Argos and in the NFL, is still making sure we hit the higher intensities. I think, thinking back to the Argos, leading up into the playoff run, right before that, I had guys hitting singles at like 89, 91%. Granted, obviously they could probably if you density up, your body is better prepared to handle the loads of the sport. Volume is easily manageable. And for me, instead of hitting multiple sets up there, I do what I like to call building up. You want pyramid. I decrease the volume and increase the in season. I'm trying to finish, say, for example, 1%. All right. On a squat, the reality, so that to backtrack on that, it's not a true 91% as well. What I will do is I'll put out a weight chart, and I know what their training max is. Okay, I know what their training max is or what their actual max is. But when we get in the room for the day, we'll have them warm up, and then, just based on conversations with the guys, they'll tell me where they're feeling. Like I had a guy named Dylan Wynn, who's now with, I believe, chAT. He's a 500 plus squatter. But on any given day, I'm going to follow the 425 numbers, 475, or I'm following the 550 numbers. And so it just depends. Like, I'm not the kind of guy that'll sit there and your true 91 is what you're going to hit. Because on any given day, you may have everything in the tank. And why would I hold you back from enjoying the benefit or reaping the benefit of lifting that heavy weight? Or at the same time, why would I force you to try and attempt something heavier than you are mentally and physically capable of doing on that given day? With the high schoolers, I will pick intensities based on what I think they can handle. And a lot of times I will go underneath what they're truly capable of. And I'll play little games with them and say, hey, you know what? This is our heavy single, but it feels smooth. I'm going to let you know if you can hit a second rep. And so the reality is at that point, I'm just watching bar speed. So they go and attack that first rep. And if they pop out of the hole, who am I to hold them back from getting that second rep? And so it's a little bit of mind games as well, because now they've conquered that first rep that they wanted to at an intensity I want them to hit. And then they turn around and they've moved it faster and better than they needed to anyways. And now they get that extra bonus set. So they've rewarded themselves. And so for me, it's a little bit of mind games. But the guys have seemed to, and even now with the NFL guys, even in the offseason, I'll do little things like that where the final set will be 2 to 3 reps or 1 to 2 or whatever it is. But I will decide, and they know that I will make the call whether or not they get the bonus rep. So it's about trust, but then also on their side, they don't sandbag and they don't try to struggle through 3 reps. They really try to attack each and every single rep. So then we can make decisions and gain. So to go back to your question about in-season, for me, it's really more about managing the volume and really trying to maintain the intensity as high as I can. Obviously, I cycle through that, but really it's more about managing volume. So on any given day, I'll cut sets out, but I need guys to hit the intensity I'm looking for. And I think the reason I'm able to do that with them, or was able to do that with them when I was with the Argos, is really just more on communication and letting them know. Like I had a guy, Dakota Prukup, he's quarterback, but I mean, this guy is extremely gifted, talented athlete. Was playing on special teams. I believe he hit a back squat PR more than halfway through the season. And I'm talking about lifetime PR, more than halfway through the season on a double. And it was just because he just stuck to it. I mean, we weren't ever you to move. And, one week he came in and he was like, yeah, that's a lifetime. He wanted to film, and I didn't understand why. I was like, we're in the middle of the season. It's not a big deal. And he later told me it was a lifetime PR. So I think that's my unique approach. I don't think everybody believes in that, and I don't think everybody's willing to take that risk, especially with professional athletes. But based on my experience and my approach to it, I am willing to do that because I also err on the side of caution. So it's not like, everybody hears like you're hitting heavy singles and doubles, and it's not like I'm having him hit true 95+%. Or if I'm having a guy like Dylan bench a 92%, it might be a band assisted 92 or 95%. So at the top, yes, CNS joints, everything feels it at the top of the movement, but off his chest, shoulders are taken care of. So there's a little give and take there.
Yeah, what a great response. And it kind of, for me, always reiterates talking to somebody like you that has so much experience in the field, how much science goes into training and therapy and the sports performance side of things. There's a ton of science, but there's also a huge amount of art form, like artistic expression as a coach, not artistic expression literally, but in terms of how you manipulate certain variables throughout the season. Nobody can give you that in a textbook, right? You're not going to go to page 73 of that and tell you this is exactly how you need to do it for every single athlete. So I think this just reiterates for me and just continual learning, and all of the internships that you've done. I'm sure you take bits and pieces from all of those and what works and doesn't work with different athletes. It's a huge point in terms of that. Would you agree with that statement that there's equally as much art form in what you do as there is science?
Yeah, I think it really is. I take great pride in that fact. I consider it an art form because everything I do is based on science. Don't get me wrong. It is based on science, but the tweaking and the manipulating is where the art form comes in. And that is not just willy-nilly necessarily. It's based on the team, because at the same time, like you guys were asking earlier, you asked earlier, like the high school kids, I wouldn't take the same approach with a certain set of high school kids I do with my high school kids that I'm dealing with right now. But 2 to 3 years into the program, I'm going to get to do some crazier stuff with these high school kids than they did as sophomores. Like they're going to see different things as seniors. They're going to enjoy different modalities and like feel different variations because they've earned that right. And I say that in the sense that their bodies are now prepared to handle what we're asking them to do. And likewise, I think with professionals, for example, Ricky Ray, who's the quarterback, I believe he'll be a CFL Hall of Famer one day, or should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Legend. We got him squatting. This is whatever it was for him, 13, 14, 15, something. It was up there. And literally the week before the day before we traveled to the Grey Cup, he came in and squatted for me. Listen, the reality is a guy like that doesn't even have to come in and work out for me. He tells me he doesn't work out. Guess what I'm going to do? Okay, Ricky, I got you. Why? Because he's earned that right. Yeah. He knows his body. The reality is he knows his body. He's been to a Grey Cup. I'd never been there. I'd never coached a Grey Cup team before. I'd never gone that far in the playoffs. So I merely presented a plan, and he decided whether or not he was going to execute. We played with it a little bit, and so at the end of the day, I think we both won, because the reality is I got what I needed, or I felt I needed, out of the athlete. And likewise, it changed the room when they saw Ricky Ray come in and squat and and do those things and it just changes everything. So it's like, if you're willing to work with a player, you may as a coach want them to hit 315 for, let's say, a triple on a back squat, whatever it is, just a random number. But who's to say that they're really, really feeling it and they're like, Coach, I want to do more. I'm like, all right, cool. 335, 355, we'll talk. We'll see how you feel. But now you need to hit a single. But if you hit it really well, then you could do a double. So it's just really just communicating. And I think it's that coach's eye that you develop over the years, seeing how the bar moves. And the reality is you could see, even as an intern, you can sit there and tell whether or not a bar is moving slow or fast.
Right.
There's a clear line there. And then just being able to see that and make educated judgments on how you're going to make progressions or whatever it is. So, yeah, I definitely think it's really huge on the communication, and that's where the art form is. And I think that goes back to my earlier point on communication and caring for the players, because if they know you genuinely care about them as a person, they know that you're not there to help them chase numbers. And at the same time, I will hold them back from chasing numbers because I care more about their long term. And when they know that, I think they're willing to give you just that little bit more.
Yeah. And the story about Ricky, I obviously don't know him that well. I had a couple interactions with him in the seasons that they were there on the York field. But yeah, to get him to squat, I know this wasn't a matter of like arm wrestling him until he said, okay, uncle, squat. It was a matter of him seeing the value, probably some of the discussions along the way, and then coming back around to that culture that you're a huge part of because you're around the guys so often in terms of, you're the get back coach during game days, but all the time in between, it's the process between games that really gets them to where they need to be, and you're a major part of that. And seeing a guy like Ricky, or that person who never could do a chin up, walk into the gym and knock one out, that really just elevates the whole group. It just comes back around to like generating that sweat equity, the relevance to everybody else, and just boosting the morale, right? Like that's a cool story, man. And all the stories that you've touched on through your career, your own personal life, and all these stories with some of the pro guys and all the coaches that and the high school kids, like amazing, man. I really appreciate you sharing all of your stories and your time. I know it's the afternoon. It's got to be getting the feeding time for you because it's getting a little later over here, and I hear those dogs are.
It's all right.
Maybe they need out, but if anybody has a question for Jay, a couple questions, and then we'll let him go on his way and let you guys go on your way, and go from there. So if anybody has anything, just pop it in the chat box, and I'm happy to deliver that, or you can just type it in there. Or if you feel more comfortable on the mic, go ahead and jump in there. Let's just touch on balance a little bit before somebody writes in a question. Balance in your life, like you're getting up early. I don't know if your wife is a performance person or in sports or lifts or trains or does anything, but how do you find the balance in your life? You're up early, you train hard, you take care of a lot of other people. How do you take care of you? I know that lifting is taking care of you, but the other things in your life, how do you keep up with that stuff with the role that you have currently?
I think that's a great question. I think it comes down to doing things that you enjoy outside of what you like to do or what you do for a living, right? Like obviously I train for a living. I enjoy training. My wife enjoys training. We have a setup here at home, squat rack. She squats, deadlifts, does all of that. But as far as balance, it's just finding time for other things. During this quarantine time, decided to focus on photography. So if you were to go on my Instagram, that's all you see now is me taking pictures or learning to be a photographer. I by any means, I'm not very good, but I'm learning. Like I'm investing time into learning. And the thing is, the athletes love it. They love that I'm learning different things. I'm not just taking pictures of them, but taking pictures of random stuff or whatever it is, what I see in my life. And so I think it's, for me, balance is just finding time outside of what you do to actually enjoy life and pursue other passions. If you want to read books, for example, my wife is a knitter. And so when she comes home, she works in the emergency department. So she's on the front line right now of everything that's going on. When she comes home, she sits down and enjoys some time knitting. And, that's what she does. And so I think, whatever your passion is, working on models, reading, if reading and learning is what you want to do, so be it. You mentioned coaches versus COVID the other day, and there's a lot of stuff like these extra, learning experiences that I've missed out on because I've still been busy during this time. But then there's other times where I've just decided, like, you know what, if I really want to learn and catch up on that stuff, it's going to be recorded. I can go back and learn later, but don't pass up on an opportunity to go take new pictures or do things that bring joy to my life. And I think if you keep doing all that extra stuff, then, you'll turn around and still be passionate and not dread going into work in the morning and doing all those things.
Yeah, man, what a huge point. And if you haven't checked out his Instagram page, I got, for maybe 2 minutes, I got a little nervous. I was like, oh, maybe he's not doing strength and conditioning stuff anymore. He's like, he's got it's a Fuji camera, right? You have, you're just walking around doing doing some photography, and it's some great stuff.
It's my birthday, a Fuji. She got me a Fuji camera for my birthday. So that's what I've been doing is, just taking pictures of anything and everything, obviously not getting out a whole lot. So started out with stuff at home, the different flowers she does when she does gardening here at the house. Okay, I saw a great question here. Manage sleep and recovery. All right. So, so I'll answer that in a second. But just really taking a lot of different pictures. And so, my Instagram doesn't show a whole lot of training. I actually don't post any training videos. Like if somebody wants to sit and talk, I'll definitely discuss that. But my Instagram's more just the world through my eyes outside of football. And then the athletes, but never necessarily them lifting. For me, it's more just the human interaction. Sleep and recovery. So my big thing is wearing an Aura ring right now. I know everybody does different things. I've been wearing an Aura ring for about a year. I've compared it. I also use an Apple Watch, but my big thing is just, whether or not there's obviously different papers on it. There's the Whoop and all variety of different things to track your sleep. The reason I love the Oura Ring myself is small footprint, right? It's very non-invasive. The only time I ever take it off is if I'm going to go put lotion on or do anything with my hands, but still wear it in the shower, working out, training, doing all that stuff. So for me, it's helped educate me. I now know, like my wife and I were actually talking about this last week. If I eat anything past about 7:30 p.m., I notice trends. So I just follow trends, not necessarily a daily thing, but look at the trends and know that if I eat past 7:30 p.m., I'm going to have a rough night of sleep. So it's really about learning and prioritizing. I also know that if I have more than 2 or 3 drinks in any given evening, that's going to affect my sleep. So for me, it's really just about noticing trends and educating myself. I mean, that doesn't stop me from eating dinner later in the evening or whatnot, but it also in turn helps me mentally prepare, knowing that if I eat a later dinner, maybe I'm not actually going to train at the time I decide to train the next day. And so I have to make that conscious decision when I go to bed and set my alarm clock, because I know I'm going to be affected. Recovery, the other thing too is I got gifted the other day. I think I posted about it on Instagram. Todd Gurley gifted me with some Normatec boots since my knees have been aching on the hikes. So, yeah. So little things like that. So now, obviously taking care of Normatec, Hypervolt, whether or not you're a believer in that or it's just a placebo, I do it on a regular basis to make myself feel better, right? So obviously there's research behind a lot of these products, but then sometimes, things are divided on the research. But for me, it's more about what can I add to my toolbox to help me feel better about myself. So, the reality is trying to slow down on my caffeine. I've tried. I'm down from my peak anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams a day to now I'm trying to limit myself to about half that, to 600 milligrams a day. So I try, those are the things. So hopefully that answered the sleep and recovery question. Common deficiencies or trends you see in athletes that I monitor. The common trend is, it goes back to the question you asked me, is lack of sleep and recovery. That's the biggest thing. No matter how genetically gifted they are, and then you go from high school all the way to the pro level. The biggest thing is, realistically, it's because they are such elite and gifted athletes. They don't always have to get the most, the sleep that's recommended. So they believe they can get away with less and not care about as much for the recovery aspect. And so for me, the biggest thing is always educating them about the sleep and the recovery, because a lot of times they could just get away with it. They are so gifted. I mean, listen, there's guys that can show up drunk to game day and perform. I've seen it. And that's not just to glorify it. It's just, it happens, but they are genetically gifted. And so I think the common deficiency across the board is a lack of sleep and recovery overall, or not being as invested in it as we as coaches and practitioners probably want them to be.
Yep. Yeah, we touched on it in the last session, just in terms of injury recovery and jumping on an injury right away to do something about it, as opposed to just letting it rest, letting the body do what it needs to do, and just kind of relying a little bit more on rest is best. And sleep recovery, there was a whole nother, in the COVID time, there was a whole sleep recovery summit. Nick Lamb ran it with a whole bunch of different practitioners talking on sleep, and he's actually, I don't know if we call it self-professed, but he's a sleep coach now, a sleep recovery coach. And I don't know, everybody's seen them at this point, the analogies of your cell phone and how well you take care of your cell phone when it starts dying. You got to get it plugged in right away, or else you're going to lose your right hand. But we tend to overlook ourselves, and we run ourselves ragged, and to the point that we can't even recharge with sleep. And a lot of the technology and stuff like that we're on late in the night, right before we go to sleep. So there's a lot of added things that enter the world of performance that weren't there in the CSCS exam. They weren't there in school, and you learn and you pick up on these things as your experiment in societal norms grows with photography. You're picking up on a lot of different things outside of strength that relate back to your profession. So really good stuff, man. I think I'll let you go at this point. There's a couple really good questions. Really appreciate those. Some really, really key take-homes tonight, Jay, and I really appreciate your time. We all really appreciate your time. The human-first approach, educating yourself, educating others, and reflecting on yourself and going inside a little bit more often to see what's going on with you and with your athletes, and asking them to do the same. I think if I could take anything away from this in a summary, those 3 points are applicable across the board, no matter your profession, no matter your time in school, out of school, internship, pro, whatever it is. I'll wish you a happy anniversary tomorrow. Maybe
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My intel would be like, go back to Starbucks. If you can recall the drink, that would be romantic. Happy Valentine's Day. I don't know, whatever we're calling it. Really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah.
As always, we'll be in touch. I'll post the article so that everybody else can access it. And a few of those resources and names that Jay touched on. Really appreciate you sticking this out with the spotty internet and everything. We made it.
Yeah, sorry about that. That part I can't control.
No apologies. No apologies necessary. It's like a tough set. It worked out much better in the end. Our result was a whole lot better for sticking it out and getting through it, man. But in all sincerity, Jay, thank you so much for your time and making time for all of us to sit and chat. This has been Let's Chat session 16. We'll go at it again on Wednesday with Elena Luciani. She's an entrepreneur in the strength and conditioning field. Her handle on Instagram is @training2excel. She's another ex-York gone entrepreneur, strength and conditioning, life wellness specialist. So she'll be on Wednesday. Don't forget about next weekend, Saturday night will be Taki Night in Canada with a T. That is coast to coast with ATs from BC all the way over to the East Coast. Looking forward to that one. And then Sunday night next week will be Adam Douglas, a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good friend of Jay's. Lots of hockey talk with him and performance from that end. So not to minimize Jay, thank you again, man. It's got to be getting on food time over there for you. So have at it.
Definitely.
Don't let it get past 7:30. I don't know how you're awake at 7:30 if you're waking up at 3:45, but hey, that's you. And you just keep doing it, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and then – yeah, I really appreciate your time. You guys staying on the whole time with the Wi-Fi issues, but feel free to reach out. Best way to get a hold of me, honestly, is through Instagram. I get a lot of messages on there. That's usually and right now our organization is going through changing emails with our change from Mamba Sports Academy to Sports Academy. So the best way to get a hold of me, and I usually am pretty good about responding, is on Instagram. Feel free to ask any questions you didn't on here and try to help you guys out. Hopefully you got something out of it.
Oh, we all did, man. Thank you so much. Honestly, your time is always valuable. I really appreciate your openness and your candid nature and your professionalism and all that you do, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Everybody else, if you're willing to stay on, I'll hang out for a little bit. Let's continue this thing. I am stopping recording as of now. Thank you. This has been session 16. Good night.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com. CONSULT@firststartherapy.com. On Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.